Hi everyone, and welcome to another astrological update. Today I'm going to be speaking about this upcoming new moon in the sign of Leo that we're going to have on the 8th of August, which also coincides with what so very many modern mystics call the Lion's Gate. The 8th of August is 8-8, and this does bear a powerful numerological symbolism. And if we add a new moon phenomenon to this can be potentially life-changing if we know how to use this energy, or perhaps an even better term to use, how to temper this energy, how to make it serve our highest good. And our personal contribution, so what we make with this energy, with this celestial opportunity, is very, very important. Because just think about it. The sign of Leo is very, very individualistic. It is the home of the sun. So basically it is the distinctiveness, the light of our consciousness. Yes, of course, the ego as well. But our ego can simply be understood as our human identity. And because it's actually our human identity, well, that means we have a great saying in that, what we make of it. The more aware and conscious we are of what identity is and how it actually sources from our past, our education, the conditioned self, so to speak, because so very many things that we actually think in a very blind way that are specific, distinctive to our identity, well, they're actually not. All those things are something that we learned, we picked up, or perhaps they're based on our own interpretation of life experience, certain events. So basically, a great part of what we actually think to be our human identity is just something that we learned, perhaps something that we resonated with. Another part is what we taught ourselves, perhaps our aspirations, our desires, something that we really, really worked for to make it part of the self, part of our stories, part of our identity. A very quick example is, for example, our profession, our job, our career, our position in society, our position in our families. It really, really depends on what is important to us specifically, individually. For example, for some people, being a parent, a mother, a father, or their profession, a doctor, a nurse, a healer, an accountant. For other people, still quite the opposite, being a nomad, being a free person, being an artist, being a thinker, dreamer. You can name everything that you want on this list. But all those things are something that we actually had to pick up and learn to become. Now, if a lot of that is divinely inspired, divinely guided, or it just resonated deeply with our souls and that's why we integrated it in our sense of identity, that is a whole other question and topic. But the main idea is that we weren't actually forced to embody it, to accept it, to make it our own. It was somewhere a choice that we had to make, either consciously or unconsciously. But of course, there is the other side of this, where a lot of things we actually didn't choose, yet we still embody them, we still enact them, they're still part of our identity, despite the fact that maybe they're not really us at all, or we don't even resonate with them, we don't even like them, but they still are part of our identity. And a very good example for this is education. You know, we learned mostly at school our way of thinking, how to use rationality, logic, what is acceptable morally, socially, scientifically, etc., and what is not. Of course, the education that we received from our families, from our parents, from our grandparents is also a part of this, because very many things that we hold as our sacred principles or certain ideological, philosophical distinctiveness, a point of view, a life philosophy, etc., might be something that we actually inherited from our parents, and we don't even know this in a very conscious way, because when you inherit this, you hear it, you see it, you perceive it each and every day, and passively it becomes part of you. So it's not like they taught you by force. And a part of this can also be deeply rooted in genetics, actually. For example, all the not so favorable things like fears, like certain traumas which we weren't part of, yet still we feel them through because they're part of our families. And all of these things also contribute to our sense of identity. And not to mention, there is peer pressure, there is, the influence of society. No matter who we are, we can't block it out, only if we become hermits and totally separate ourselves. But no one, especially those who listen to this recording, have chosen that path. And in this day and age, choosing that path might not really be that very wise from so very many different points of view. So, everything is really part of our identity, everything that we experienced in life. And the more we become aware of this, the more control we have. That gives us the position and the power to discard, block out, purge out everything that we consciously, through our awareness, behold, and let's say we don't agree with them, or in this light of knowledge, we can see the core of that it's not us. For example, certain fears might actually not be our fears, certain life philosophies might not be ours but our parents, or what I said earlier. Certain desires and our priority list might not even be our own. They might just be the socially accepted priority list, if this makes sense. And we might not really have a great deal of choice here because we are part of society. So there are certain things we have to accept regardless if we like it or not. And why am I mentioning all of this? Well, on first hand, because at the time of this new moon, Mercury, the planet of mind, communication, basically awareness, is also in this part of the sky. Which means that awareness is a big part of this picture. But this kind of awareness is not so straightforward. Leo is the heart. Leo is the seat of our passions. It is the inner fire of creativity, basically, that burns inside of us. So it's not a rational energy in a classical sense. Of course, the heart and the feelings do have a rationality of their own, but those are very unique and distinctive for every person, basically. So again, know thyself is the core of everything. That is how this Mercury can function in a most harmonious and helpful way, because on the other hand, at the time of this new moon, and of course shortly after, it is going to speak in a conversation of tension with a fixed star, Algol, in the sign of Taurus. And Algol is temptation, illusion, deception, especially our own deception. It is basically the darkness within ourselves. And I would say that it's not the Plutonian kind of darkness where it's just the shadow. Neither is it like Lilith, where it's, our vanity, the animal, the unrefined power within us. But, if astrology has an evil power player in the sky, well, that is Algol. And I know that this is such a primitive interpretation, and it's totally unlike me, but out of all the planets and astrological symbols, if there is something which actually gets close to evil, well, that's Algol, but it's not external evil. All of us are evil. Evil is alive inside of us, regardless of who it is that we are. So when the first thing that pops into your mind that, well, not me, I'm not an evil person, I'm righteous, I'm fair, I'm moral, I'm spiritual, whatever, well, that is already alcohol voicing that inside of you. Because, let's just take a look at the most purest human beings that ever walked on this earth. Christ and the Buddha are the most easiest examples for this. And on their journeys towards enlightenment, well, they also had to confront their own shadows. They were also subjected to temptation. And how that power of temptation, the shadow, manifested, well, it wasn't anything external, it was internal, an inner voice, if we can call it that way. So basically, every single being which walks in human form will have that. What we do with it, that is a totally different thing. But someone who would actually think that they're pure, that evil is not alive within them, well, that person is, I'm so sorry to say this, very, very misguided. Keeping it under control and not giving it the chance to conquer us, to dominate us, to rule our lives and choices and who it is that we are, that is a totally different thing, but we still have it within us, and it does manifest as like a thought, a criticism, an intention which is not that pure, or as lust, or as desire, or as vanity, pride, etc. And why is this so very important? Well, if Mercury, the planet of the mind, which is in the sign of Leo, the intelligence of the heart, and it's tempted, it is aggressed by alcohol, well, you can imagine that that will represent hatred, obsession, anger, all the bad choices and all the bad gestures that we can do with our power, with our creativity, with the fire of our passion, and even with our love. Hatred is basically the most twisted, obsessive, distorted form of love. Like, just think about it. You cannot let go of that person because you feel something extremely passionate towards them, to hurt them or to do this and that with them. That's one thing, but you still cannot let them go, so that's an attraction already. And Mercury is also the planet which rules speech. So at this time, be very, very careful and try to rule yourself. Leo, the sign of kings. This is where you have to be sovereign over yourself. Be careful what you speak. Think very well before you speak it. Because under this aspect, regardless of what your intention is, your words can be interpreted, they can be twisted, they can be taken in all the wrong ways offensively. And if you're actually at that time fueled by anger, well, you can imagine that that just adds to all of this. So even if something, someone, whatever triggers you, and you really want to speak out what you feel, the anger, or express your sovereignty, to defend your honor, whatever that may be, just please think before you give life to those words, before you communicate it, either very directly through speech, words, writing, or sometimes even indirectly through gestures. Now, if this wasn't enough, Mercury also holds a supremely harmonious celestial conversation with Eris, goddess of discord, in the warrior sign of Aries. Now, a trine is of course a harmonious conversation. It is a blessing. It is basically courage, self-confidence, a lot of passion, inner power. So this blessing actually can act in a very unfavorable way for those people who given into their anger, who have given into their own illusion, temptations, their own unhealthy desires, etc. So balance, self-discipline, and just to rule our beings, even our hearts, is very, very important at this moment. because Eris is just one insignificant part of this picture, because the new moon itself, so the conjunction of the sun and the moon, speaks in a conversation of tension with Uranus, the rebel. So chances are that even our nervous system, our thoughts, our way of thinking are gonna be quite agitated at this time. So all of us will, one way or another, feel the need to rebel against something, to express ourselves, to take a risk, to get out of our comfort zones, to express that who we are in a very passionate way. And if anything or anyone challenges us, well, Uranus doesn't see that as an inconvenience, but rather an opportunity to overdo its rebellion. Uranus is not a power which is susceptible to feelings, to emotions. It is pure ration and logic, and also chaos. It doesn't care what the costs are. It doesn't care what its truth, because ultimately it's truth, what the truth does. It's not gentle. It comes down like a big sword, cutting everything through in its path just to make its point. And this will make it that much harder for us to balance and temper this energy and to turn it into something really, really good. And also, this new moon, so the conjunction of the sun and the moon, stands across the sky from Saturn. But this opposition with Saturn is not very powerful. And this is where some astrologers look at this as a very good thing, because when the opposition to Saturn is not that strong, well, that means the limitations, the boundaries, the obstacles, everything that might get in our path are not going to be that very predominant. But at the same time, Saturn in the sign of Aquarius is rationality, logic, diligence, our own sense of honor and dignity, which should be limiting us from doing illogical, desperate, or excessive gestures. So, it's like a double-edged sword. It's good that we are powerful enough to overcome what that Saturn represents for us personally, but it's not so good that our inner Saturn is also not that very strong. So that means that morality, dignity, rationality, logic, reality check is not going to be a force that is guaranteed to stop us from making wrong choices. And at the same time, the square between Saturn and Uranus is not that strong in this present moment. So that means that Uranus is as active as he possibly can, because the square the Sun and Moon hold with Uranus is quite precise. It is very, very tight. So that means that Uranus is going to be a very important power player here. And also the Sun being in its home sign of Leo, well, that is extremely fiery. That is combustion. That is desires can sweep over us. And just let me give you a few examples of what the most unfortunate expression of this energy can represent in our lives. And then I'll get to the point what the big opportunity and potential is. So all the bad things that can happen, as I say, it really depends on us. So it's not like fated or anything like that. As I said, anger, speaking our truth in a very aggressive way, and we offend other people, and we may not be able to fix what damage we have caused with our words. It can mean feeling so very inspired to take a foolish risk, to do something desperate in hopes that it will solve our situations, or in hopes that it will alert other people that we need attention, we need sympathy or whatever. And it can actually humiliate us, because at the same time Mercury holds minor astrological conversations called quincunxes with Pluto and Neptune. So that means illusion, that means deception, where it is us deceiving ourselves, not anyone else. In the worst case, it can mean the worst possible advice and inspiration from a person who doesn't really serve our greatest good. So we must be really, really careful what we do. Another possible negative expression, violence. Pure selfishness, self-centeredness, narcissism, severe toxicity where we are totally blind to how toxic we are, overconfidence which leads us to all the bad things. And the bad things can be, for example, let's just take it in a purely physical term, you have the opportunity, the chance to take part in an extreme sport, Uranus squaring the sun. It will provide the adrenaline, it will be fun, it will be a unique experience, that part is guaranteed. But if you do it in a very foolish and blind manner, disregarding your own weaknesses or disregarding other circumstances, it might lead to a big accident which will stay in your memories for all the wrong reason. Or let me just give you another example. You have this business meeting or job opportunity and you are someone who is really skilled, very, very experienced. You are someone who has mountains of work behind them, which gives you self-confidence and which gives you a certain kind of status. And you go there, but your self-confidence and the mountains of work and experience actually turn into arrogance. And instead of getting it, or instead of that turning into a success, it turns into a massive failure, which will sting your ego like as if you've fallen into a wasp nest. And needless to say that, collectively speaking, how this will play out on the world stage, now you don't need to be an astrologer to interpret this. Lies, deceptions, rebellion, violence, may it be physical violence, protests, or on social media or on media. This is where even scientists, Uranus, are gonna battle each other. They're gonna contradict each other, of course with empirical evidence, but it won't do anything good. It will just send people into greater confusion, fear, panic, paranoia, etc. But let's get to the most positive side of this energy, where the requirements are very, very clear. To live from your heart space, but of course in a harmonious way, because the heart space should be love, should be your genuine, passionate desire, which is not an obsession, so it's healthy. It's yours, so it comes from your soul, it comes from your heart, and that can give you courage, that can give you self-confidence, it can give you belief, it can give you inner power. So expressing your truth, but in a gentle, in a loving manner, where the passion of love should be the fuel and not really ego and other things, that can lead you to a wonderful new beginning, Leo, where you just fall in love with something, someone. Perhaps you might discover a passion of yours, a talent of yours, a skill of yours, which you never ever thought you'd have. Maybe you can fall in love with a certain kind of activity, a certain philosophy, an ideal, or even a person. Embodying your truth, embodying your authenticity. As I said at the very, very beginning of this video, our sense of identity, who it is that we are as human beings, also depends on us. So speaking your truth, showing your truth, acting, embodying your truth, acting accordingly, can attract all the right kind of people or energies into your life. Because Leo just doesn't feel that passion, Leo also lives it. It embodies it, it shares it, it projects it. So Leo can be one of the most inspirational energies out there, because Leo actually acts. It doesn't just speak, it doesn't just show, it doesn't just feel. It's the real deal. If you are an artist, if you are a creative person, well, this energy can be like supreme bliss for you. It can inspire you to work. It can inspire you to give everything that you are into your work, into your creativity. The most wonderful pieces of art, creations, solutions, project, the results of brainstorming, Uranus, can be born out of this energy. It can truly lead you to success, because Leo is also the energy of a public figure, VIP, nobility, kings and big leaders who lead through the heart. But of course, this isn't the kind of energy which is like planned out already. Uranus is surprise, Uranus is chaos, it is spontaneity. You have to work with what you have in the present moment, because chances are either a big epiphany, a bright idea, an unusual inspiration, a thought, a plan, a communication, whatever is gonna offer an opportunity to create, to have a moment where you have to take an action and that leads somewhere significant. Or it could be an unexpected opportunity, an unexpected offer, an unexpected invitation coming from someone or a group of people, or regardless. And if we have this courage, self-confidence, and most importantly again, profound self-knowledge, we can take any opportunity, any chaotic manifestation, and turn it into something truly wonderful, something creative, which can truly lead us to a wonderful new beginning. The most important element here is that love in our hearts, which is gonna spark up, which is gonna come to life when we fall in love with someone, something, regardless if it's a person, if it's something physical, if it's something philosophical even. Love has an attractive power, so it will definitely guide us and lead us somewhere. And at the end of the day, it is profoundly healing, it is profoundly revitalizing. It is a celestial invitation to find ourselves, to rekindle the love and relationship to our own beings. And yet another really wonderful expression, it is the resurrection of the inner child again, Leo. And if we make the right choices, the right decisions based on, as I said, again, I cannot help but say this over and over again, self-knowledge, to know who we are and what we are. The celestial conversation which will follow this new moon, the following days of course, it will be the sun's turn to hold a conversation of tension with Algol, the demonic star, so to speak. And that doesn't have to turn into temptation, ego crisis, selfishness, narcissism, toxicity, but quite the opposite. The sun will illuminate our hearts, our souls, and we will see temptations for what they are. And of course, when we see them, we block them out, we discard them, we face them and say, no, I won't fall to this. But of course, the sun will also hold a trine with Eris, goddess of discord. That might be a moment when courage pays off. That might be a moment of great triumph, victory and breakthrough, because Eris specializes in winning a battle where her odds are almost zero. It is almost like Goliath and David. She can bring down anything and anyone, because on one hand she can be patient, she can wait for that right opportunity to strike and hit the weakest point of her opponent, so that is what ultimately leads her to victory. And Eris in the sign of Aries is a very instinctual power, so it is the sheer the godly intelligence within our instincts. But Eris is just Eris. The sun at the same time will hold another trine with the galactic center. And if you've listened to my horoscopes, you know that the galactic center is always good news. It is basically the creative energy of the supreme divine power. And a trine is a blessing. The trine is something really, really positive. And that can mean either divine intervention, divine help, based on what you ask, based on what you're focused on a heart level, again Leo. Or it can simply mean that the divine is going to allow your victory because you've done all the work. Or let's say, even if you are not successful, A trine with the galactic center can just represent a divine inspiration which will turn your unsuccessful effort gesture into something truly wonderful, a big blessing. And at the same time, when this new moon takes place, Venus is going to hold a conversation of supreme harmony with Pluto. Venus being in Virgo, Pluto in Capricorn. So this can also mean a kind of divine inspiration, but which comes from within you, from your perhaps unconscious mind, even if it's your shadow tempting you with the light at the end of the tunnel, the reward after you go through the hardship, or the potential glory and honor that could be offered to you if you embody courage, if you embody self-confidence, etc. So it can be like a divine inspiration to endure, to stand your ground, to not give up, to believe in yourself, regardless of the odds that you're facing. And this psychological empowerment can also make you so very attractive, in a more metaphysical sense, of course, to get help, to get solutions, to get inspiration, to get people to support you, etc. And now let's fast forward a little bit towards the second half of August, where an anaretic sun in Leo, anaretic meaning the last 2 degrees of the sign, where the symbolism of the planet is greatly amplified. And for the sun, well, you can imagine, it's in its home sign, it's also anaretic, and it takes part in a full moon, but not just any full moon, but a second full moon in the sign of Aquarius. And when there are 2 consecutive full moons in the same sign, well, that already suggests that the universe insists on that part of the sky, because there is a lot happening there. It's very, very important. And Aquarius is basically the superstar of this 20-year cycle that we are in, because that's where the great conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter took place in December 2020. So a lot of things depend on Aquarius. Aquarius, equality. Aquarius is freedom, the power of the people, social connections, our future, technology, the internet. And also that second full moon in Aquarius is gonna speak with Jupiter, so it is expanded. And because the sun is still in the sign of Leo, that's a lot of Leo activity there. So basically, whatever we hold in within our hearts is gonna really shape and form our future, and not in just in the long term, but also in quite a short term. So that is why all throughout August, even though there is gonna be a lot of tension, a lot of stress, a lot of chaos, a lot of unexpected, even natural calamities, explosions, political turmoil, social unrest, you name it. Yet still our efforts to keep the mind, the head Aquarius, and the heart balanced and in harmony with each other is gonna really, really pay off. Of course, those individuals who allow themselves to descend into chaos, well, they will harvest that. Especially with Jupiter in the picture, because Jupiter in Aquarius, in a very raw interpretation, means what you believe, what you mentally focus on each day, every day, is what you're creating in your life. And this is where, there are so many genuine, good-intended people, spiritual people, who want peace in the world, who want to truly embody love, but the way they do it, they don't see how manipulated they are. Posting each and every day and sharing posts about the vaccine, about the COVID, about politicians, about who knows what hidden agendas. I'm not saying that that's not true or part of the truth or whatever, but if you obsessively focus on that, you make yourself part of that, and ultimately you become a victim. You cannot succeed at that. You cannot become a hero. You will become a martyr. and you are working towards that, and you don't even see it. You think that you're doing the good job, raising awareness and whatnot. You actually believe with all your heart that the divine is inspiring you to share your truth or whatever, and instead you're digging your grave, and you do it with a smile on your face, and you are so manipulated, almost possessed by what they actually want you to do, that you can't see that the solution is actually to live your story. That's not part of your life, that's part of the world's life. What does Christ tell us? Always. It's okay to live in the world but not be part of it. But this is exactly what I'm talking about. Know thyself, know the truth within your heart. And also, the sun in its home sign of Leo. Yes, we have this every single year, but that is the part of the year when even the stars, even the universe invites us to focus on ourselves, our stories, even the ego, everything that is important for us, our passions, desires, etc. And that is exactly what we should be doing instead of, fighting with the windmills, the most negative and self-defeating expression of Aquarius. Like, ask yourself, what are you fighting for? Who is even your opponent? Is it society? You can't win against society. It's free will. People choose what they want to choose. Are you fighting against an occult power like a demigod or whatever? What chances do you have? If you truly want to fight, then find your happiness and teach other people how to do the same. And happiness requires peace, serenity, and not allowing external circumstances to defeat your spirit, your soul. So basically, instead of sharing a source of misinformation, source of fear, source of hatred, helping create the psychological trap, the spider web, so to speak, why don't you share a poem? Why don't you share a memory of yours, a nostalgic moment, a beautiful painting, or by any cute animals, everything that offers the best kind of escapism. If you fight fire with fire, well, you're gonna burn, everything's gonna burn. But I see within myself, because this is how the square between Algol and Mercury manifests for me personally. I know that speaking about this will not make absolutely any difference. And I also know that those people who have to be sucked and consumed by this, that's what they need in their lives, that's their lesson. So raising awareness sometimes is actually what the divine doesn't want you to do. But then again, this is also where the Saturn opposition comes into play. I know that it's not like gonna go viral, or I'm not gonna influence anyone truly by this, so I'm not really going to cause any kind of change, good or bad, through my words, because very few people will listen to them. So I'm actually safe. Well, this concludes today's update. Again, I must say, if you're an artist, if you're a creator, if you're a dreamer, if you're a warrior of love, but again I say, the genuine kind, those who understand what love is through the prism of the Christ, if this makes sense, that kind of warrior of love. Use this energy as best as you can, create, dream, write, paint, do whatever you're inspired to do, because that your square to Uranus is stress and discomfort and problems, anxiety, yes of course, but this is one of those moments when it can actually turn into something truly wonderful. Even materially, it can simply be a jackpot, whatever that may play out in your life as. So have courage and just create. So thank you so much for listening. Wish everyone a truly blessed and magical new moon. Until next time, bye for now.